You just realized that you needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job posts seen on other job sites. Indeed-sponsored jobs help you stand out and hire fast. With sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates so you can reach the people that you want faster. And it makes a huge difference. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Plus, with Indeed-sponsored jobs, there's no monthly subscriptions, no long-term contracts, and you only pay for results. How fast is Indeed? Well, in the minute I've been talking to you, 23 hires were made on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. There's no need to wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/BWN. Just go to Indeed.com/BWN right now and support our show by saying that you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/BWN. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need.
I'm excited to tell you about the designs Homage has cooked up for the 2025 MLB season. If you're as baseball obsessed as I am, you'll love the full roster of major league looks from Homage. Amazing comfort and deep cut designs that help fans show off passion for their favorite teams. Homage has a massive selection that tells the story of the greatest sport from its very beginnings. Deep logo history, coast-to-coast stadium tours, and the biggest players from every era. Legends never die at Homage. If you need your new shirt for going to a ball game, Homage has you covered with its most comfortable fan clothing, and it's available for fans of all ages. This year's collection hits dinger after dinger after tater after tater. Fleece, tees, bottoms, and more. And don't forget to check out the new starter jacket lineup, an iconic dugout look you don't want to miss. Heroes get remembered, but legends never die, and these looks go long, period. Check out the Homage MLB collection to find your team's coolest gear.
From your favorite source for Chicago White Sox talk, delivering news, interviews, analysis, and more. This is the Sox Machine Podcast with your hosts, Jim Margulis and Josh Nelson.
Thanks, Rob, and welcome to the Sox Machine Podcast. I'm your host, Josh Nelson, and it's Thursday night, April 10th, 2025, as we record this new episode. The Chicago White Sox first road trip of 2025 didn't go well. After being swept in Detroit, even though they had a 3-1 lead heading into the ninth inning in one of those games, the White Sox had hoped for better luck against the Guardians. Instead, they lose the first game of the series 1-0 on a walk-off bases-loaded walk, thanks to Mike Clevenger. In Game 2, Miguel Vargas looked to be the hero when hitting an RBI single off Guardians closer Emmanuel Clase, but Mike Tauchman pulled his right hamstring on his way to home plate and got tagged out. And then Game 3 was just not competitive as the White Sox lost 6-1. Counted up, and the White Sox have now lost 8 straight games. Folks, we are only 12 games into the 2025 season, but it's starting to feel a lot like 2024 all over again. Help could be on the way. Chase Mydroth is joining the White Sox this weekend, and we'll see what the corresponding moves will be. In this episode, we'll recap what happened in Cleveland, preview the upcoming home series against Boston, and give our thoughts about the leaked City Connect updated uniforms for the White Sox. Joining me is the managing editor of SoxMachine.com. It's Jim Margulis, as James Fegan has the podcast off as he gets ready to cover the homestand for us at Sox Machine. And Jim, 2025 is feeling a lot like 2024, especially after the White Sox suffer their 8th straight loss.
Yeah, and the fashion that they lost 2 of those games is the extra twist, like having Mike Clevenger issue 2 walks to guys who were 4 for 41. I think their numbers were combined to walk in the winning run. Then he had Mike Tauchman getting hurt just when he thought there was a just glimpse of the possibility of better when you have a game-tying single, or it looks like a game-tying single off a guy who got Cy Young votes last year in Emmanuel Clase, thinking, okay, you can maybe think like this offense lacks power. It lacks the ability to have like a quick strike, but the at-bats are better, at least in terms of they seem to be doing a better job of telling balls versus strikes, making starters work. Maybe it's not going to pan out in terms of, scoring 5-6 runs a game, but you are seeing starting pitchers especially have to work a little bit more. So maybe it's a case of seeing Emmanuel Clase and being able to be like, we know this guy, we know what we're waiting for. Sure, it's a great pitch. That cutter is devastating, but we have an idea. We have a better idea of what we're going to the plate with, and we just need a break. Like, in the first game, Luis Roberts reaching on the error, and then being able to run the bases on Clase, setting up an opportunity. And then the next game, even better. Like they showed the ability to put up a fight as an offense, despite the lack of home runs over the case of the entire 6-game road trip, not hitting a homer. That's, I think, the biggest problem is just, when you have this lack of being able to put the ball over the fence, score 1, 2, 3 runs in a hurry. Like, he had the Guardians scoring 2 runs on 2 pitches with a double and a homer on first pitches that Jonathan Cannon threw. Like, without the White Sox offense being able to do that, it comes down to things like execution defensively, running the bases, and we're seeing the White Sox not being able to do that. So while there are examples of the team being more competent or just being armed with better information, it's not actually mattering. And this is the conversation we had last year and going into this year, is trying to do the little things better when you're so deficient at the big things. You don't get the reward that like the teams like the Dodgers do for doing, for running the bases really well. Like there are marginal gains that really matter when it's Dodgers versus Yankees, and the Yankees are terrible at running the bases, and the Dodgers are actually pretty good. That'll pan out. But when you don't hit homers and you issue too many walks and you don't strike guys out, trying to take the extra base, defining yourself by that skill just leads to Luis Robert and Matt Thaiss getting thrown at second, trying to get huge jumps because they think they've scouted out the opposing pitcher better. And that just leads to desperation. And we saw that last year and we're seeing it this year. And so that's, I think, the biggest 2024 flavor to me is just the emphasis on little things being the wrong time for it.
So we had this question for our opening day Eve show that we had at the Remova Theater before the season started. When will the White Sox get their 4th win of the season? They're currently 2-10, and Jim had the bold prediction the White Sox would start 4-1. That did not come close. The 2024 White Sox, as a reminder, got their 3rd win when the team was 2-15. So if this is truly like 2024, we're going to see 5 more losses from the White Sox. So this losing streak reaching 13 games. The 2024 White Sox did not get their 4th win, of course, after they were 3-22. Jim, this fan base cannot withstand a similar start like 2024. If this 2025 White Sox team is marching to a 3-22 start, like the White Sox seriously should just ask the Savannah Bananas if they just want to stay in Chicago all summer and play out the rest of the White Sox schedule.
A residency.
Yeah,
Savannah Bananas.
Please give away our stuff that we have planned, but we need you to play the actual games because our fans will not come out to see this.
Yeah, or just like Las Vegas or Billy Joel at Madison Square Garden, just one game a week at the very least. Fulfill your other travel dates, but then come back and we'll make it worth your while. I guess for the record, to go back to my prediction, I thought they would start 4-1, but then they would lose like the next 19 of 20 to just devastate. So they're doing that part. They're doing the soul crushing long losing streak in April, just a little bit sooner than I thought. So just wanted to clear that up. But yeah, it's Chase Majoret's coming up, and we'll get to that in a little bit. And that really is the one difference, is a better prospect base that should be ready to help this year in some form. The problem is that you afford those guys no margin for error if they come up and look like rookies, which they are allowed to do individually. It's a problem when you have 4 or 5 players who look like rookies and you need one of them to be immediately competent. I go back to like watching Brooks Baldwin trying to play right field, now left field. He let a fly ball drop down the left field line because he thought he heard Miguel Vargas coming. And he's giving me like Zach Remillard flashbacks in terms of when Remillard came up, he looked, pretty good. He looked fine. He looked like he knew what he was doing on the base paths in the field, but then like they kept stretching out his responsibilities and then they found his breaking point. And then all of a sudden the mistakes started, flowing. 29-year-old rookie who is like, oh, he's got some polish. He's going to show our team how to play. And then he gets overwhelmed like any rookie does, and it all kind of crashes down on him. And I'm seeing like the same thing with Brooks Baldwin. You can play shortstop. Oh, you can play outfield. Let's play all the corners that you haven't played it in years, and let's have you play a different position every game, and then also have to be a plus base runner, and also just keep on and on and on. And then like he gets caught stealing or he gets doubled off trying to do hit and runs, and he's making mistakes in the corners, which he's relatively inexperienced at the pro level, and the speed of the game just gets to him. And so like that's what I'm afraid of with these prospect promotions is, if you're counting on them to look good and they don't, then all of a sudden you're really screwed for upside. And, this is what the Mike Tauchman, Austin Slater platoon was supposed to prevent in right field. And this is what Josh Rojas was supposed to prevent in the infield in terms of, really smart, accomplished veteran player, having the fundamentals down in multiple positions. When you have Tauchman hurt and the outfield's in disarray, and Andrew Benintendi getting hurt as well to really throw the corners into a mess, and Josh Rojas isn't there, and like Jacob Maya, his flaws are thrown to the fore, then this is where you're at, to where Chase Mydroth has to come up and like, please be good. And that's not what you want for a team that's already taking on water so many ways. And so, I think the hope is that, a guy like Mydroth can come up and just play within his game, and he's fine. And the other positions are a mess, but at least, maybe, if he gets on base, or you have more guys getting on base and having good at bats, then like Luis Robert can stop doing his thing to where like he feels pressure to be the entire offense and can't be that guy. But when you don't have the ability to compartmentalize as a rookie and your game falls apart and everybody else's game falls apart, then that's where like Chris gets, what are you doing? Do you have the ability to build a roster and evaluate talent? Jerry Reinsdorf, why are you still here? All those big existential crises are just there, and they define the franchise.
Yeah, so let's talk about Chase Mydroth. Jim mentioned that he is getting called up. Our James Fegan was able to confirm the initial reports on social media. Mydroth with the Charlotte Knights batting .267, a .450 on base percentage, slugging .600. He already had 3 home runs in AAA, 8 walks to 5 strikeouts. Do you have any thoughts on what the corresponding move possibly could be, Jim? Would the White Sox cut Jacob Amaya?
They could. He hasn't been outrighted yet. Like every team, or every time they try to drop him through waivers, some team claims him. They tried to do that this winter. Baltimore claimed him, and then they claimed him back from Baltimore. So another audition to where like he's, slugging 103. Perhaps this is the time where he gets through and the White Sox have the defense first middle infielder they hope that they would have when they tried to sneak Amaya through waivers last time. But that would be my guess. But there's a lot of fat in this roster to where there isn't a favorite. Like I wouldn't bet on Amaya versus the field. I think the field is got a lot of talent for I guess for not being talented. But for one player, when you look at who suddenly becomes the least playable, if Mydroth is there and playing every day, and you have Brooks Baldwin backing him up, and you have Lenine Sosa at second, and you have just guys who can cover multiple positions, all of a sudden Amaya becomes why are you here? Where are you getting playing time? And that's why I think he would be the most expendable.
So for Mydroth, something to pay attention to. I've been posting on social media, TJ Stats developed a great visual of the StatCast data from AAA. Very helpful to tell a story. And there's a lot of red in the StatCast profile for Chase Maidroth, which is great. But there is one area where it's just weird, Jim, and that is his Z swing rate. So that is the amount of swings that Chase Maidroth takes on pitches located in the strike zone. Chase Maidroth only swings at 42% of the pitches that are thrown in the strike zone, meaning strikes thrown against Chase Maidroth in the zone go by him. He doesn't offer 58% of the time. Now, if you're wondering if 42% is low, Major League Baseball average is 67%. So on average, 67% of the time, hitters are going to swing at a pitch that's in the strike zone. And what makes it even weirder, Maidroth has a 100% contact rate on pitches in the strike zone. I don't think he can survive in the major leagues on a 42% swing rate on pitches in the strike zone, Jim. I think it's very unrealistic to expect a 100% contact rate on pitches in the strike zone of the major leagues.
It's fine.
So this is where I'm going to be focused on with Maidroth, watching him early, is what kind of adjustment that he makes and how is the game different for Maidroth from AAA to the major leagues. Because I am expecting the Boston Red Sox to attack Chase Maidroth, because if there's any team that knows Chase Maidroth well, it is the team that he's playing against this weekend, his old team, the Boston Red Sox.
He was sent down at the end of spring training, or towards the end of spring training, when he was giving a pretty good audition. I think the White Sox, even though they managed his call-up, so the service time is the exact amount of time that he needs in AAA to not use up an entire year on the clock, and they get an extra year of team control. I don't think Maidroth has the kind of upside to where you worry about gaming it like that. But I think they gave him like an honest to goodness shot to win the job and couldn't. And they talked about how he was passive a little bit in the zone in spring training and wasn't punishing pitches he could punish. And when you look at that swing rate, I think you can look at it two ways. One is, if you're optimistic, you can say he's really looking for a zone, especially like early in a count. He might be somebody who's very comfortable hitting with two strikes because he does have very good contact abilities, and he's not. If he gets to count to 1-2, he's not panicking. He's not afraid to take a strikeout. If it is like, if he's striking out at like a sub 20% rate, he understands that some strikeouts are good if he can do damage. And so he's waiting for the pitches to do damage on. The fact that he's got 3 homers already validates that strategy. And, if he's going to swing at pitches in the zone and counts he's not looking for, in that zone, then maybe he's not hitting as well at Charlotte doing that. It's just a matter of, does he go to the majors, and is he understanding that he has to concede more of the strike zone, that he's not going to be able to wait for mistakes as frequently, and he might have to try to move the ball around in the field a little bit more in certain counts, or be protected against certain zones as weak spots because they can hit it more. That's something to watch. And that's something I think the White Sox might have been concerned about in spring training when the performance wasn't there. So I think we've seen like both sides of this coin of he's looking for his pitch, but when it doesn't go well, you're too passive and you're not, you're maybe, what's the saying? Perfect is the enemy of good enough. Like he's not swinging pitches that are good enough because he's looking for like the perfect pitch that he can do the most damage on. I think that's maybe what he's balancing here. But when it's working at AAA, there's always that tension for prospects who have like a real good bat to ball talent. I mean, I think Avi Garcia is my leading example of somebody who just like had nothing to learn at AAA because he was so talented at putting the bat on the ball against lesser pitchers. And, maybe he could try to look at more pitches or look at a zone, but if you're posting a 4-digit OPS in Charlotte. How do you make yourself worse if you are taking pitches and you don't know why you're taking them, or you don't feel comfortable taking them? You have to be some version of yourself at the major league level in order to succeed. And I think, Tim Anderson's a guy like that took years to realize what he could be. Yohan Moncada had that tug of war when he was healthy in terms of being too passive versus jumping on the right pitch. And he seemed to strike that balance in 2019. And then the COVID season hit and everything, I think everything got away from him. But I think that's what I'm looking at with Meidroth is there is this tension of being preternaturally talented at making contact. And he's not like Nick Madrigal to where like he doesn't have any power and he's going to be lucky to hit 5 homers a year. I think we're seeing so far in Charlotte that he can pounce and mistake and he can float a ball into the White Sox bullpen. And, he'll do that a number of times a year. And he's not going to be like the wet newspaper guy who can easily be defensively aligned against and just doesn't get on base. But I do think it'll be a case of him understanding his weaknesses and having them shoved in his face a little bit when professional pitchers or major league pitchers are doing it. And the adjustment period will take a little bit of time and the White Sox will have to be used to it. And I think the quality of his bats will be that, he doesn't look overwhelmed. It's just going to be unproductive. It's going to be a case where if you watch him go 0 for 4 once, it'll be like, it didn't look like much. He had a couple of firm ground balls or he popped up one that he missed and he should have better at bats around the corner. And then just a lot of like 1 for 4s and 0 for 4s. And then you think like, okay, it's taking a while. I think Gavin Sheets is my classic example of that hitter who looks fine for a game at a time. And then you look at the numbers after 3 weeks and like, man, the ball's not doing anything. And I think Meidroth could be more of the same, but I think the hope is that the defense is good enough at short and he's only playing one position and he's fine there to where there is a payoff in waiting out some struggles because he does make enough contact to where he should be able to, luck into at least some hits here and there because of just BABIP alone.
So the White Sox on the call-up front called up Omar Narvaez to replace the injured Corey Lee, who is on the injured list because he flipped over his left ankle sliding back into first base. A really ugly slide, an unfortunate injury for Corey Lee. So why no Kyle Teel or Edgar Carroll? Well, Kyle Teel, that's an easy answer because he has been struggling hitting the ball in AAA. As we record this, Kyle Teel for the season is batting 190 in Charlotte, despite his hot start to the season. His on-base percentage is dipped below 300. He's at 292 and slugging just 381. On the other side, though, Edgar Carroll is excelling in AAA. He's batting 371. His on-base percentage is 500, and he's slugging 486. So that's a 986 OPS for Edgar Carroll. So if you're looking for a catcher other than Omar Narvaez to come up and work with the White Sox pitchers, maybe it's Carroll that beats Kyle Teel after all to join the Chicago White Sox. Elsewhere, Colson Montgomery's batting .081 with a 190 on base percentage and slugging 162. I'll get to Colson Montgomery in a quick second. But Jim, with the Omar Narvaez call up instead of Caro, let's just do that comp because I can understand the White Sox not calling up Teel at the moment with his struggles at AAA. I'm assuming they just want an ex-major leaguer to come up. They know the ropes. They don't have to teach the guy how to handle themselves on the major league level. I'm not expecting a great deal of production from Omar Narvaez at this stage of his career with the White Sox, but that's the only explanation why it's him and not Edgar Carroll. The White Sox are still sticking with their planned development structure for Teel and Carroll until after the first half of the season. I'm not quite sure what the deadline is, but they don't want to disrupt it right now.
Yeah, my guess with Narvaez is he was such a surprise when I went to Birmingham and he was on the roster, and people around the park were like, yeah, it's a shock that he's here. Or he was the reason why we didn't release our roster until like right before first pitch because couldn't announce that he was here. And, we weren't exactly sure, who would be here, whether the deal would hold up. And I imagine that they were able to sell Narvaez on Birmingham because, they said probably something along the lines of, we have an opt-out, but until you have the opt-out, if something happens to Teal or Lee or Theis, you'll be our guy. We don't want to disrupt it. So even though you're in Birmingham and you have two catchers above you, you're effectively the third catcher for the first month or two of the season. And, this is why we can sell you on this opportunity. Also, you'll catch some really cool pitchers in Double-A, and you might have some fun down there doing it. And we'd like to have the veteran know-how back there for Noah Schultz and Hagen Smith and Grant Taylor and the gang. So, that's my idea with Narvaez. And then, probably not great to, go back on your word if you're, having Edgar Carroll, like a hot week for him, say like, we're going to break our promise. And, then Carroll looks overwhelmed. Then perhaps a veteran catcher opts out and you don't have him anymore. And then you've messed up your carefully planned timeline for your catchers. So that's, I think, on the Narvaez front, there's that. With Carroll and Teal, I think probably, if I were in their shoes, I just might want a little bit more of a sample size to know which guy I'm calling up first, and not have like one great week for Carroll and one bad week for Teal, kind of decide like, oh, Carroll's going to be up the rest of the season because he's doing well. And, there's no room for Teal at the end right now, even though we had a hunch that he might be the guy we want to give more time to. And, an emergency at the major league level is not a reason to try to mess up the way you're evaluating two catchers. And I think it's pretty important that they evaluate those two catchers well, because one of them could be traded. So I think you want to make sure that you're calling up the right guy and giving the right guy the first crack at it. If you think that he might be the one claiming the major league job and the other guy might have more value bringing in a player to different positions. So that's why I think like I'm okay with Narvaez being called up and Teal and Carroll given more time at Charlotte, because it's hard to imagine while they're selling the idea of Teal and Carroll splitting time and catching every other game and then being called up and doing the same thing in Chicago. You have to say that no matter what. You can't say, oh, we like Teal a lot more than Carroll or vice versa, and then you hamper your ability to trade one of those guys. I think you have to just hold their value no matter what. And so the rhetoric right now is what it is, but I just think you want to make sure that when it comes time, and I'm hoping it's closer to like, assuming the major league roster still only has one catcher who's major league ready, that, if it's Carroll or Teal, like I would hope that's be like by mid-May. I think that'd be a sufficient sample size. Start giving one guy a crack at it and pair him with a veteran catcher, or a catcher who's at least been around the block a little bit, which I think Theis and Lee qualify as. That's when I would start getting itchy, I think, a little bit. If Narvaez is hitting, if Lee is still injured, Narvaez is like 2 for 30 and Carroll is smoking the ball, just like, what are you doing here? You got to give the fan base something. And Carroll has been, if Carroll didn't get hurt with the back injury at the end of the year, he would have been called up probably in September, getting an audition. Like he would already be in this role. So it's not a matter of him being rushed. That would be my go time. I think would be a couple weeks into May, when I think you can start feeling good about one guy getting an opportunity and starting to prioritize that.
How much longer before the White Sox should really consider demoting Colson Montgomery down to Birmingham?
It's a case where
this is bad. Not good. I mean, this is bad. It's also
like Birmingham's not a more favorable place for a left-handed hitter to hit. So
I'm not really considered park factors, but like maybe even the pitching. I mean, I know the pitching's still tough at Double-A, but this is not working.
Yeah, no, it's just like the thing is with Double-A, you do get a lot of velocity in Double-A. You maybe don't get a great,
right.
So I'm not sure that helps. So I would almost imagine that you'd see an injured list stint before you saw a straight up demotion, and then maybe coming back from the injured list, you're kind of going up the ladder a little bit, doing some rehab time. Depending on what time of the season it is, extended spring training, or maybe the Arizona Complex League to A-ball to AAA. Like maybe there's a little bit of that matriculation versus just demoting them. That I think that would be more my course of action, just because I don't know if Double-A like immediately cures what he can't do right now.
Got it. Okay. Well, the White Sox offense is bad. Looking at the steak dinner bet update for those that are invested, The White Sox are currently averaging 2.91 runs per game. They're on pace to score 472 runs in 2025, crushing all sorts of team records for fewest runs ever scored. So this offense is already producing at a lower rate than we saw last year. And a big reason is Luis Robert is just not playing well. His expected batting average is only 208. His actual batting average is 154. His expected slugging percentage is only 310, but the actual is 179. So even though his expected stats are not very good, his actual stats are much worse. Despite having great bat speed, the average bat speed for Luis Robert is 76.2 miles per hour. But the problem is that he's not squaring up anything. His average exit velocity on batted balls is 88.2 miles per hour. To compare, Andrew Vaughn's around 94. So Andrew Vaughn on average is getting an extra 6 miles per hour exit velocity on the batted balls than Luis Robert is, and that's not normal. Robert's chase rate, that's pretty normal. He's always been a chaser, 31.8%. His whiff rate is currently 33%. And Luis Robert, career high right now, first pitch swing rate, 57.8%. And it goes back to that second game of the series against the Guardians with Logan Allen on the mound, Jim, and Robert having past success against Allen, a left-handed pitcher. I was sold on the idea, here it is. Robert is going to break out, Jim, and does not. Goes 0 for 5. His first 4 at-bats, I think only he saw 5 pitches. Just baffling decisions by Luis Robert, overly aggressive. And it just feels like, and we talked about this during our playback watch party with our friends from the 108, that it's in between the ears for Luis Robert. To me, it just seems like he's trying to do too much. He is trying to be a superhero, but right now he's not even close to his normal self. And I wonder, outside of season-ending injury, is this the worst case start for the Chicago White Sox with Luis Robert? Because they would love to deal him before the trade deadline. But this version is going nowhere.
It is, but it's also early. It's also cold. There's offense down. Yeah, I think the Yankees blew things out of proportion with the way they beat up the Brewers, and led you to think, oh, the torpedo bats are going to lead to a 2019 run scoring environment again, and things are all out of whack. And then you look at the scores around the league, a lot of low scoring games. So, it's bad. And I think it's bad partially because Andrew Benintendi's out, then you have Mike Tauchman out. So you really need Robert to bring the outfield together. And when he's getting a day off because of a break, and then you have an outfield where you have Michael A. Taylor in center, and you're trying to cobble together an offense with Austin Slater and Nick Maton, and just you bring up Greg Jones, and you bring up Joshua Palacios, who a lot of White Sox fans.
These guys are going to crush me, by the way.
Exactly.
In the end of the year, Sporkle, I already know I got 2 names wrong. I don't even know who these guys are right now. They're gonna
showed like guys who just showed up in Charlotte, not even on opening day, and are all automatically being called up and added to the 40-man roster. That's, I think, that's what makes it feel so pressing. But in terms of just within Robert's normal swings, even in a good season, like he has weeks like this, even in a good season, where he's just getting beat up on pitches inside, chasing outside, really expanding his zone, swinging at the wrong pitches, no matter what, kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't situation. And he rights the ship. So that's why, like, the fact that he's running aggressively, I think is the one thing that makes me feel better. Like, we've seen Robert look bad at the plate, but also not run because he's afraid of hurting his hip or hurting his legs, and that's a problem. So the fact that he's running a little bit more makes me think, okay, he's feeling better. So I'm not expecting a physically compromised version of Robert to just persist the whole season. So that's, I think, what gives me a little bit of hope around the corner that he should be able to turn it on, as he gets more comfortable, as the weather warms up. But it is a little bit of a blind faith just because we've seen him, coming off the season like last year, there's a chance he doesn't hit. We've seen what it looks like when it doesn't happen. There was a major injury involved in that. So I think that's the one difference, but can't rule it out. Also can't rule out that this is just a bad 12 games. And he's somebody who, when he has a bad 2 weeks, it looks like a really bad 2 weeks and looks like he's never going to hit again. So that's why I don't want to hit the panic button too soon. But certainly when Benintendi's not there, and you realize like how much he was holding the offense together with the plate approach he's shown and the power that he's shown, we saw it in spring training as well when Robert was hitting the ball. Like, when he hit the ball out of the park at Camelback Ranch, it was fun, and it's like there's entertainment value here. So if the rest of the offense is terrible, at least I have Luis Robert Jr. at bats to watch and look for like a 450-foot homer. That is a reason to get on my feet if I'm at the park. But when he's not getting the ball out of the infield, or if he's striking out with runners on, then it just compounds the misery in a way that like a Nick Maton struggles or a Jake Amaya struggles do not nearly do. So I think he's a little bit under the microscope, but certainly another 2 weeks like this, if we're talking like a full month of it, then yeah, I'll revisit it and say like, yeah, I don't know what you do here. The time to trade him was 2 years ago when every team would have been like, why are you trying to trade him? Looks like a pretty good player. Are you afraid of something? And then, it's a case of you're always getting an underwhelming trade package for Luis Robert the time you're trying to trade him because you never build up the kind of track record you want.
You just realized that you needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job posts seen on other job sites. Indeed sponsored jobs help you stand out and hire fast. With sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates so you can reach the people that you want faster. And it makes a huge difference. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Plus, with Indeed sponsored jobs, there's no monthly subscriptions, no long-term contracts, and you only pay for results. How fast is Indeed? Well, in the minute I've been talking to you, 23 hires were made on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. There's no need to wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/BWN. Just go to Indeed.com/BWN right now and support our show by saying that you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/BWN. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need.
Take me out to the ball game.
What are you doing?
Did you know DirecTV has the most MLB games?
So, you're singing.
Yeah, they put your favorite teams front and center right when you turn it on. Buy me some cold cuts and flapjacks.
Those aren't even the words.
I'm allergic to peanuts.
Stream DirecTV, home of the most MLB games. Visit DirecTV.com. Claim based on total games offered on national and regional sports networks. RSNs available with choice package or higher. Availability of RSNs varies by zip code and package.
The White Sox as a team are batting 199. Their team OPS is 578. You can guess that is the worst in Major League Baseball. The offense is bad. We knew the offense was going to be bad, but it's bad. It's real bad. It'd be nice if Luis Robert can break out the funk. I agree with Will Venable. I thought that was a smart move by the new White Sox manager to give Luis Robert the day off, and hopefully he bounces back and has a strong homestand. The upcoming games against Boston, and then a day off, and then 3 games against the Sacramento Athletics. I almost called them Oakland, but the Sac Athletics, I don't know. I just want to call them the Athletics. Whatever. Find it home. Damn it. Find a permanent home, wherever. Speaking of home, let's talk about Mike Tauchman. I still can't believe what I saw while watching the playback and not really having anything to contribute to the conversation. Just like no words from me because just shock. But Jim, do you recall ever any baseball game where the game tying run hurts themselves as they are heading towards home plate?
No. And I tried Googling it to see if I was...
So that's a first for you too.
I Googled it to see, like, am I obvious one that just, I'm blinded by the White Sox, their ineptitude. And I always think that they're the only ones to have this kind of situation. And then it turns out it happened a couple times last decade. And I should remember that. But no, not that I could find and not that I can recall. The closest thing I can recall was that college softball game a couple years ago where the girl hit a go ahead. I don't think it was a game winning run in terms of like a walk off, but I think it was a go ahead homer, and she stepped on first base and wrecked her knee and hit the ground. Yes. Her teammates, like the rule book said, like nobody in your team can touch it. It's like passing the runner. If you touch if a teammate touches you, makes contact. So if you need to run the count, your team can't assist you. And so two of teammates on the opposing team picked her up and helped her go the last 270 feet. And then her teammates helped her out. And it was a heartwarming example of sportsmanship, in a game that you didn't have high stakes, and thinking like, this is nice to see people realize it's just a game. And I was thinking like, that'd been nice if that applied in Cleveland, and you see like
Jose Ramirez go pick up Mike Tauchman.
You see the catcher being like, "Oh, Mike, you okay?" I'll pretend to let the ball get past, and then the Clase and Ramirez can help him get across home plate while I pretend to look for the ball. Sportsmanship, pass it on. That's what I was hoping for, but that did not happen. But that's the only example I can think of, and that was a college game to where like the health of the player really was paramount. There's nothing riding on the game. I would hope that nobody's betting on division. I'm not sure if it's Division II or junior college softball games. There's no huge money riding on it to where like it could swing lines and get a bunch of people in trouble. So yeah, nothing at the level of a major league game where a Mike Tauchman situation happened.
And then quickly on the starting pitching front for the White Sox, Sean Burke only lasted 3 innings. He allowed 3 hits, 3 earned runs. One of them was a home run. Control was an issue for Sean Burke. He started the game with 9 straight balls, walked 4 batters, struck out 4, only lasted 79 pitches. Jonathan Cannon, the White Sox really pushed him, but he was not all that effective against the Guardians. 5 1/3 innings on 102 pitches, 7 hits allowed, 6 earned runs. He walked 3. He did strike out 6, but 2 home runs allowed by Jonathan Cannon, again, as the White Sox lost 6-1. Is the starting pitching magic starting to fade with Sean Burke and Jonathan Cannon?
I think with Burke, he's going to be like this a little bit. Like this is the version I saw in Nashville when he pitched for Charlotte and didn't get out of the first inning, and could not envision 2 months later he would be having the best September of any pitcher and get an opening day assignment. I think there will be some ups and downs with him with Control because of just how new his arsenal is, how big he is, how the mechanics get out of whack. So not terribly concerned about him. Maybe there's a big picture question about like whether he truly is a starter who can make postseason starts for a team, or whether he's just somebody who looks good relative to what the rest of the White Sox are doing. But I still think he gets a pass, or at least more evaluation time, because when the arsenal works, it works. I think Jonathan Cannon has those more existential questions just because he doesn't really have that weapon against lefties. Like the lefties are the ones that crushed him in Cleveland, especially the first couple innings, 2 homers, Manzardo and Kwan both turning on. I think Manzardo was a sweeper. Rocchio was a sweeper with the double, and then Kwan was a first pitch fastball, but they're all like middle-ish, or they're ready for it. Just like, I guess maybe the arm slot he's throwing, like they can see it pretty well, or kind of know if their pitch that they're anticipating is the pitch he's throwing, and are able to make the decision they need to make. And was a problem last year. And I know that because Cannon's been an open book, because, James has a good rapport with him and with, Ethan Katz, talking about all the pitches he's tried to add, and, the different arsenal he's tried to deploy in terms of pitch mix and pitch priorities to try to solve lefties, and nothing quite seems to stick. I think that's maybe the bigger problem here between the two pitchers. So yeah, it will be a big month, I think, for Cannon. The good news is for him that as long as he's healthy, and as long as the White Sox pitching ranks have been decimated by Tommy John surgeries, like the entire next man up, which was, that level of Kai Bush and Drew Thorpe and Mason Adams. Like they've all undergone Tommy John surgery. And, the other pitchers who are going to be called up are guys like Justin Dunn, who are, quadruple A pitchers, or, it's too early to go to Noah Schultz and Hagen Smith, but either of these guys, should their problems persist and, them, having a major, either they have to wear it to get through 5 innings, or just they get chased after 3 1/3 because of efficiency issues. I think they will have to wear it, I think, a little bit, just to make sure that any kind of demotion is a worthwhile call. One, because they have the chance, especially Cannon, like he showed enough last year to where like he gets a little bit of the benefit of the doubt to try to correct at the major league level, try to fix the plane in the air. And there's just not a whole lot of help ready in Charlotte to try to replace pitchers before you have to, because inevitably there will be an injury where those guys are called up. So I think if you smash the glass to call up somebody when it's not absolutely necessary talent wise, then you do put yourself in a situation where, like, if Davis Martin gets hurt, or somebody else has a shoulder or a lat, or gets hit by a comebacker and needs some time off, where do you go? And then all of a sudden you're scrambling. So I think they'll try to not visibly panic when it comes to starting pitching plans, as long as everything else is going poorly. Like, I think they have to just kind of hope that the Martin Perez, Shane Smith, Davis Martin top 3 is good enough to withstand struggles elsewhere, because I think they're all going to take turns struggling over the course of the season. None of them are so proven that they can be counted on for 6 good months of pitching. And you just hope that they allocate it to where, like, 2 or 3 are good at one time, and you can stomach the other disappointing days as long as they show signs of adjusting.
And now, 2 pigeons who can't believe how good humans have it with DirecTV.
These humans are hopping from streaming apps to live sports without batting a wing.
All from the DirecTV home screen.
With just one click, you could be watching a baseball game, a movie on Netflix,
Or a critically acclaimed documentary.
You watch documentaries?
I love the ones that leave you with a question.
What?
Exactly.
DirecTV, a better way to watch whatever you want to watch. Visit DirecTV.com. Internet-connected Gemini device, separate Netflix membership, and additional paid subscriptions required for third-party apps.
Well, let's preview the upcoming series for the Chicago White Sox as the Boston Red Sox visit the Red Sox right now. Not exactly stumbling, but they are 7-7 to start the season. They're 1 game back in the American League East. They won their last game against the Toronto Blue Jays. Offensively, the Red Sox have a team 716 OPS. That's good for 12th in Major League Baseball. They are averaging more than 5 runs scored per game. On the pitching front, their team ERA is 3.86. That's good for 14th in Major League Baseball. They are allowing on average 4.42 runs per game. Some hitters to watch. Wilyer Abreu, the right fielder for the Red Sox. Very impressive to start the season. His season OPS is over 1,100. He's got 3 home runs and 12 RBIs. The top prospect, one of the highest ranked prospects in all of Major League Baseball, Christian Campbell, hitting the ground running for the Red Sox. He's got a 971 OPS so far with 2 homers and 5 RBIs. And then the veterans, Alex Bregman and Rafael Devers. Bregman is a third baseman. Devers is the DH. Devers really started the season poorly, but he's starting to pick it up. His season OPS is over 800. He only has 1 home run, though. Alex Bregman's OPS is over 800. He's got 2 homers and 12 RBIs. Your probable pitchers for this series, Friday night, 6:40 p.m. Central Time start. The temperature is going to be cool. If you are heading to the game, it'll be in the low 40s at first pitch. Left-handed pitcher Sean Newcomb for the Red Sox against the Dart, Davis Martin. Saturday afternoon, a 3:10 p.m. Central Time start. First pitch temperature looking pleasant for Chicago in April, high of 57 degrees. Richard Fitz for the Red Sox will be facing Martin Perez, who's looking to stay hot. And then Sunday at 1:10 p.m. Central Time with a high of 62 degrees, it is old friend Garrett Crochet against new friend Shane Smith, which looks like an exciting pitching matchup. And I think that's the biggest story heading to this weekend is that Garrett Crochet is returning. We talked about this in the playback with Shane Smith. It's an impressive start with his White Sox career. 2 very good starts. We have seen another pitcher have a pretty impressive start on the mound named Dylan Covey. And a long time ago, Jim, when Dylan Covey outdueled old friend Chris Sale in Fenway Park, 1-0, we thought maybe Dylan Covey can stick and be a mid-rotation starter for the White Sox. That clearly did not happen for Dylan Covey or the Chicago White Sox. But I am hopeful that Shane Smith can at least hold his own, as he will need to for the White Sox to be competitive against Garrett Crochet, which Crochet in 3 starts is a 1.45 ERA to start the season. So a little parallels. I'm not saying Shane Smith's going to end up being like Dylan Covey, because I am sold on Shane Smith having the potential to be a mid-rotation starter with his overall stuff and arsenal. But it feels very similar here, especially in this Sunday game. New guy, Shane Smith, against old friend Garrett Crochet.
Yeah, and the way Smith threw the last time out, the way he threw the changeup, and the swings and misses it got, like Steven Kwan looking silly, Jose Ramirez looking silly. Those guys typically don't look out of control. They look like they, if they miss, it's because they got, it was a really good pitch, or they just happen to miss once in a while, but they don't look off balance the way that the changeup made it look. And I think, the fact that the changeup was like 92 miles per hour and faster than some of his fastballs, it really underscores like how much the movement profile on his changeup is the difference maker. We talked about it with Davis Martin's changeup, and like, is it more of a sinker because he's not getting a whole lot of strikeouts and he's kind of shaping the ball, and he shot that down. He shot that theory down, saying he's trying to get swings and misses. But I think with Smith, like, you definitely see what that pitch is supposed to accomplish with the swing that's getting, like, the way the bottom falls out. It's almost like a splitter, but with velocity, the way it gets those ugly swings. So my hope is that as he gets more scouted, as teams get more familiar with how the pitch is supposed to look, whether that gets pumped into the traject machines that teams have and are able to see it, that they're able to anticipate a little bit better. I'm hoping that the magic doesn't wear off in the pitch, because it is a lot of fun. And given how starved we are for upside with this team, kind of like watching Crochet last year, even as his starts were limited to 4 innings, it was just a nice respite in the season to watch him mow down other hitters for 4 innings. And he's going to get traded. He's not going to go in the 5th, probably not going to win the game he's pitching, but man, it's fun for these 4 innings, just watching somebody who's really good be too much for the hitters he's facing. And that's my hope with Smith is right now is, even if he's not going to be an all, with the White Sox, they're going to need an all-star somewhere. Maybe he's it, no matter how he does. But just in the event that, I'm imagining the league adjusts and it gets a little bit more ordinary for him. But let's say, like, it keeps going like this, to where, like, he is able to have this magic, even withstanding some rookie struggles here and there for a while. Like, I'm really holding out hope that this is one thing we can just count on every 5 days, be like, this could be special, watching this. And the fact that he's just starting his career, whereas Crochet was, reaching 4 full years, and you're talking about when he reaches free agency and extensions and everything like that. That's, I think, the a key difference here when talking about pitchers and you're hoping that they hold on. I know that the joke now is any pitcher who's looks like he's something, like, how long till you trade him to Boston? And I think that was the case with Sale and Crochet, but Smith, I think he's got a few years if he's able to withstand the rigors of a major league schedule. I am looking forward to Crochet coming back. I am looking forward to a little bit of a victory lap for him here, just because of him, off to a good start, getting the contract extension he wanted, that the White Sox weren't interested in giving him. Great for him. Very happy for him. Looking forward to hopefully James talking to him and getting some more great quotes. When you mentioned old friends who are succeeding, I thought you were going to mention Romy Gonzalez, who is 7 for 15 in terms of, like, role players asked to do way too much with the White Sox, but eventually find their little niche elsewhere. Zach Remillard I mentioned, but could have been just as well Romy Gonzalez, for guy who can do a little bit of everything and then has to do a little bit of everything at the major league level versus finding, getting a very limited role at first and then expanding it as he succeeds. That's another, I guess, more promising comparison for Brooks Baldwin based on Gonzalez having some nice years, or at least plus season and a half now with Boston playing in a more limited role.
We'll be recapping these games. You can read the recaps on SoxMachine.com. We'll also have the first pitch and game notes as well from James Fegan at the stadium, as he'll be covering all the games for us over the weekend. So that's something to look forward to. And of course, we'll recap this series in the next podcast episode that we record on Sunday night. I have that ready for you guys on Monday, which is an off day before the Sacramento Athletics visit the White Sox for a Tuesday through Thursday series next week. We conclude this podcast episode with the Chicago Bulls. So last night in their home game, the Bulls made an announcement. They had Southpaw, the White Sox mascot, at the United Center doing fun little stunts with Benny the Bull, little sketches on the court, because they teased that the new City Connect uniforms for the White Sox will be released to the public on April 28th. And we have seen some leaks online, and so far the leaker is 2 for 2 with the City Connect leaks. And assuming that they are right about the White Sox update with the City Connect uniforms, this is going to be a Bulls-White Sox mashup, Jim. What are your thoughts on the leaked images for the updated City Connect uniforms from Nike?
My first thought was that it was an April Fool's joke. And that's why I didn't retweet it, just because I didn't know the provenance of the photo. I didn't know what date it came out on. I saw it circulating on April 2nd. So I thought, okay, maybe it just was on Reddit or something like that. And it didn't get to Twitter or Blue Sky until that day. So that's, I think that says a lot about my reaction.
Not a big fan.
I think, not a fan. It looks like a giveaway. It looks like a Bull Sox night giveaway. I expect a rate patch or whether sponsor to be on the sleeve. I think I was maybe in the minority that wasn't that big of a fan of the Southside City Connect jersey. I know a lot of people are fans. I was a little bit underwhelmed just because, my thought with the City Connect jersey, especially since Boston was one of the ones that preceded the White Sox jersey, and that they went the Boston Marathon blue and yellow colors. And it was such a departure from the classic Boston look that while it was divisive, I understood what they're going for in terms of this is just playing with a different part of the city identity. This is an excuse to break with tradition and say it's just a marketing gimmick. We're not making a huge change. You can take a big risk, and if the public doesn't accept it, then you can say it's Nike. Hate commercialism. We just have to wear it for a couple of years. Just kidding. Even if some people in the marketing department really had their hopes set on it being a hit, and I think we've seen that with Boston. It was laughed off initially, saying, "God, this is ugly." But you see them a lot in the stands when you watch a Red Sox game. There is a portion of the fan base that really likes what they did with that Boston look with the City Connect uniforms, and so. When that was the precedent for the Southside jersey, and then the Southside jersey comes out, it's black and white and gray and Gothic looking. It's well, where's the surprise? And so that was my reaction was, this was a missed opportunity to take a bigger swing and, have a concept that could be a surprise hit and you might be able to do something with in the future versus, it's all kind of just various forms of Gothic. And the hat I thought was less impressive than the jersey, and it all just felt safe and known. And so this is more the same. This feels like it's known, it's safe. We have to go back to the promotions for Bull Sox to see if there's anything similar. We've seen White Sox hockey jerseys that have been, kind of close to the same form. And I guess somebody could have done this in their spare time. Just be what would this look like if the Bulls were the White Sox and vice versa? What would a Bulls basketball or what would a White Sox basketball jersey look like? And when we saw Yasmani Grandal wear that White Sox basketball jersey a lot, I think that was his go-to look. But yeah, it just strikes me as kind of boring and safe. And just like not a whole lot of thought put into it because they know it'll sell versus taking like a big artistic swing that could be divisive. Kind of like the Marlins home run sculpture that was immediately panned, and then you realize you miss it. The outfield looks boring. Like there was like an artistic decision with red grooms and like Jeffrey Loria, say what you will, but like the guy is an art dealer. He was putting his personal stamp on the stadium. It was kind of ugly and garish, but it was kind of Miami. And so, you get used to it after a while. And you think like, oh, that's kind of different. And when it's removed, you miss it being there because, what took its place is either, now there's nothing there and that was less, but also what they've now tried to put out there is just, it reminds you that the home run sculpture there was just a whole lot more baffling and attention grabbing, and it's not the same. So I think that's what I was going for, or I thought that's what the whole idea was. And it seems like the White Sox just have a different assignment, which is just to sell jerseys they know that they can sell. And this feels like going to that same well of just like, oh, we know White Sox fans like this. Here you go.
These uniforms remind everyone that Jerry Reinsdorf owns both teams. If you needed a reminder, I'm nicknaming this the City Connect Reinsdorf edition. Like
the play-in jersey.
The play-in jersey. There you go. The City Connect play-in edition White Sox jersey that really looks like the Chicago Bulls are on the field, which at least the Bulls are going to the playoffs. At least the Bulls are not on pace to score 472 runs. But yeah, this jersey serves as a reminder that Jerry Reinsdorf owns both teams. So the Reinsdorf edition. I'm not a fan. People are like wondering, what are the pants going to be? Are the pants going to be red? I don't know if I'm ready for that.
Yeah, I mean, like, seems like it has to be
red with black pinstripes.
Yeah, I'm trying to think like what would
I don't think this jersey's gonna sell. I disagree with you. I don't think it's gonna sell.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it'll sell. I think they think it's going to sell. Like, I think it's the same thing. Like, oh, people of the Bulls look, people of the White Sox look. Why, let's just print money. And, yeah, I think that it's a safe choice because they think it's going to work because it's like, well, just let people buy the other brand. Yeah, what would the pants be? I think that's a whole lot of red based on how it looks, but also I can't picture him, a white pant. So yeah, it's a good question. I haven't even thought
if they wear their home white pants with this jersey, it's just not going to look good. No, it's just going to look like you just grabbed two different pairs of uniforms and mashed them together.
It's like you packed, you forgot to hang up the right pants, the right suit jacket, and you have to go to the wedding and learn until like 30 minutes before and like, oh, hope nobody, I'm going to be sitting down this whole time. I'm not going to be dancing, or the jacket's coming off and I'm just making sure the shirt matches the pants because as soon as I can take off my sport coat, I'm going to. Yeah, it's like, I think it's a lot of red. It's a lot of blood. I'm just thinking like, yeah, because I'm thinking the red pants, the Diamondbacks look, I think, is when they try to diminish the amount of red on the pants. And then it looked kind of like blood soaked because they tried to do the gradient thing from red to white and it looked like it was just that somebody was just actively bleeding the pants. Like, I think that's the problem when you go that bold with the red is just it can get gruesome in a hurry. And it's going to show up weird in pictures if they're making a whole lot of mistakes and wearing red and black pinstripes. Yeah, I even think about the pants because I'm so distracted by the jersey not looking good. The whole thing could be a mess.
Yeah, well, again, April 28th is an off day for the White Sox. It is a Monday before the home Sox. True. The Milwaukee Brewers will be in town. So maybe the White Sox wear them against the Brewers. But yeah, that's we'll see if these come to fruition. But I'm wondering what the pants are going to look like. I'm wondering what the cap is going to look like, if there is going to be a cap for this combination of the Bulls White Sox mashup. But we'll see in about 17 days, folks. We'll see what the official City Connect uniform is. But that will do it for this episode. I can't wait.
I can't wait.
That will do it for this episode of the Sox Machine Podcast. Thank you guys so much for listening. If you just discovered the Sox Machine Podcast, you can subscribe to the show wherever you listen to podcasts, such as Spotify and Apple Music. If you sign up to become a Sox Machine subscriber, you get an ad-free version of the podcast, which you get your own RSS feed, and you can plug that into Apple or any other podcast player. I do have to apologize, folks. Spotify does not allow you to manually add RSS feeds, so if you are a Sox Machine subscriber, you'll have to use a different podcast player than Spotify at this time to plug in your ad-free version of the podcast. You can also listen and watch all of our content on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/SoxMachine. I just recently put up some MLB draft videos. We'll be getting more draft videos from the National High School Invitational, the big tournament out in Cary, North Carolina. The top high school prospects from Corona, California, the high school, Seth Hernandez and Billy Carlson are doing a great job so far. So a lot of hype with their performances. We'll have those video highlights on our YouTube channel soon. You can follow us on social media. We're on all the platforms at Sox Machine. Follow James Fegan. He's going to have the updated news. Chris Getz, the White Sox general manager, will be speaking to the media prior to first pitch tomorrow. You'll want to follow James for all those updates. He's at JR Fegan. You can follow me at SoxMachine_Josh. And I mentioned becoming a Sox Machine subscriber. You can do so at SoxMachine.com. Monthly plans start at $5. You can also gift subscriptions as well, and you get an annual discount too. Monthly plans start at $5. We have additional tiers of support. We're going to have our monthly Zoom call coming up as well for our $25 and above tier subscribers. So if you enjoy our work and you want full access to all of our coverage, go to SoxMachine.com and sign up today. The Sox Machine Podcast is a production of SoxMachine.com. You're for all things Chicago White Sox baseball and part of the Blue Wire Podcast Network. Alongside Jim Margulis, I'm Josh Nelson. Thanks for listening and watching.
If you love to travel, Capital One has a rewards credit card that's perfect for you. With the Capital One Venture X card, you earn unlimited double miles on everything you buy. Plus, you get premium benefits at a collection of luxury hotels when you book on Capital One Travel. And with Venture X, you get access to over 1,000 airport lounges worldwide. Open up a world of travel possibilities with the Capital One Venture X card. What's in your wallet?
Terms apply. Lounge access is subject to change. See CapitalOne.com for details.